You know when you have a collaboration project with huge artists that's going to pull in huge streaming numbers and chart no matter what, and even though it's underwhelming, if you try and tell people it's underwhelming, no one's really going to listen to you because of how well it did commercially. Yeah, that's definitely this album. Skepta, Young Ads, Chip, Insomnia.
I just stepped in the building, coke and vodka, cocaine change your life. Can't shoot a civilian, but as she testify, I'll change my mind. DBE is the wave, SKCM can we be?
So kind of looking more into my experience with the three artists beforehand. Starting off with Skepta, I've been a fan of Skepta for a long time. I think my favourite tunes is Gingerbread Man, Sticks and Stones, that goes back to Microphone Champion. And that's kind of where I got on with Skepta. Chip, he's had a really long run as well. For me, it was Light Up Central off League of My Own 1. That tape is nuts. Go, if you haven't listened to that tape, go listen to that tape like right now. Just click off this video. Who gives a fuck? Just click off this video and go listen to it. Ads has been very up and down for me because Ads is weird. He has the whole UK wave thing going on with D Block Europe, but it could be very formulaic and there's not very many surprises, and in terms of the concepts that he brings to a lot of his tapes, he's not very focused at all. He kind of just scatters all around the place, and then eventually in terms of the topics he likes to talk about, you kind of really know what's going to happen. It's like, yeah, we get it, you like eating pussy, like we get it at this point, like is there anything else, like please. So what did I expect from this album going into it? I mean, I was hoping it's not going to be this predictable, but I genuinely just expected it was just going to be the three of them on a bunch of UK wave beats that they kind of slapped together. Young Ads is going to play kind of intros, like melodies, singing intros, and then he's going to do the hooks for most of the part. Chip is going to have the most fire verses, and he's going to be in the middle. Actually, no, he's going to be at the end, and then Skepta will just act as like a bridge in between Ads and Chip. And that's how this whole album I thought was going to go. I didn't really expect there to be much of a theme or a concept to it because I didn't really think they actually thought it through that well. I generally thought it was just going to be, hey, these are three big artists. They've all got huge streaming numbers. Let's slap them together and see what's going to happen. Yeah, half this album went exactly how I thought it was going to go. But the other half is quite interesting. And even on the half that I did think was quite predictable and went exactly how I thought it was going to go, there are some redeeming qualities, but there's other things about this album that are a complete train wreck. My problem with Ads is that I think lyrically he can be quite lazy, and it's quite annoying because I've seen a lot of his kind of freestyles that he's done from his living room at home. He's put some of them on YouTube and some of them on his Instagram, and the guy can rap. And even as long a time ago from the old kind of link, like, no, it wasn't link up videos, it was daily. No, it wasn't on there. Where did he put that? It was the Fire in the Streets one. There we go. The Fire in the Streets videos that he did with Sloth. He was rapping, as in, it's actually rapping, not just singing about how much he wants to eat pussy all the time. And it was nice. It's refreshing. It shows that Ads can actually rap. And he just needs to take his pen from that and transfer it into what he does with wave music and when he's coming with his kind of melodic style. And he does that on Mains. Mains has a really good opener from Ads. In terms of the first verse on Mains, he kind of surprises me a bit. He really comes with some interesting quotables, which I kind of like, and he kind of goes in as he means to end, if that makes sense. He keeps the standard quite high throughout his verse, so especially in the beginning line, like, I'ma whip that crack like banana pudding. It's an interesting bar. It kind of juxtaposes, and there's a bit of contrast between crack and banana pudding, as well as just the obvious punchline of whipping like banana pudding. It's clever, and I think Ads just needs to use more of that. Like, his pen is pretty good when he's actually trying, but I just feel like a lot of the time he's not, and he kind of just reverts back to, I like eating pussy and doing lean, and it's kind of like, okay, this is getting boring. Like, can we To speak of Mains, I guess we can kind of slot this point in here. Skepta, he starts singing. I'm just like, why?
Why? Why? Why? Why? Why? Why?
I know that was something that he liked to do on Blacklisted with songs like Castles, but even then I was kind of like, why? His vocal range is really limited, and his vocal ability in terms of clarity isn't great. It doesn't really do much. It doesn't offer that much. It doesn't really make sense why you do it. It doesn't really showcase any of the best things about you, apart from just, hey, I feel like singing. Don't really get why, because a lot of the times when a lot of Skepta singing parts come on, it's just like, I'd rather not listen to this. I just really would rather not. And even on some of the rap elements of this album with Skepta's verses, I just felt a lot of his verses were kind of really underwhelming, that he's not really saying much. Punchlines just weren't hitting, or there wasn't really much there at all. A couple of the flows were kind of boring and quite expected, especially on like the intro, mains as well. A lot of songs just like, well, he's not really doing anything that great here, which is a shame, because once upon a time he did do great stuff on tracks. And even his most recent album, he did have some pretty damn good verses, but this album, it didn't really come through for him. Traumatized was kind of the first song on this thing where I think, yeah, they actually thought about song concepts when they went into this. Because when I saw the mini documentary for this album, I thought, oh no, they haven't actually thought about a lot of the song concepts or even the concept of the tape. And even now, I think there's no real concept to this tape. They didn't go in trying to do something apart from, let's make some songs together. And it's kind of irritating. But Traumatized, I feel like a lot of the lyrics were actually appropriate to the theme of the song and kind of street trauma, which is basically what Ads' album should have been, but it wasn't. But that's a conversation for a different day. It was actually appropriate. It touched on some interesting themes, especially on Chip's verses. Out of all of the kind of wave music type instrumentals, this is one of my favorite ones because it's got some intricate instruments in there that he kind of slides in, and they're a bit unusual, which I like the use of them. Like the trumpets and the melody on this tune, Traumatized, it really works, and it gives a nice different texture to the whole track. Moving on to another track I want to talk about in a bit more detail is Star in the Hood. Now, Star in the Hood, Ads really builds a good vibe, and then he switches flows halfway through the first verse, and it kind of just kills the build-up of hype that he's made previously in that verse. And it's like, oh, like why? It's just really annoying that listening back to it, they didn't catch it. But in terms of the hype he builds with that initial flow, if he just holds that verse flow continuously throughout that first verse, it's a really great setup. It's still a decent setup. I think Ads still does a decent job here, but that flow switch kind of just killed the build-up. And then placing Chip's verse after his, it kind of just kills the build-up again, because you're bopping along, and then the flow switch comes, and then he brings it back to the flow he was using before, and then like, yeah, I can bop along again. And then you've got Chip, where, yeah, he's going in, but it's misplaced. You're now in a whole different mindset when listening to Chip's verse. You're thinking, okay, like, he's got, his flows are a lot more intricate. It's not kind of bop your head dance sort of thing. It's something where you have to listen a bit more, and it kind of brings the build-up down, because it's no longer really a party sort of vibes in tune that it started out to be when Ads' verse first came, which is what I think they should have switched Chip's and Skepta's verses around, and it would have worked better that way. Now, since Heady One's album just came out, everyone's talking about experience and bigger artists experimenting, and I think when it happens, it's nice. So to touch a bit more on that with this album, Chip kind of experiments with the whole melodic rapping, kind of half singing, half rapping trend that's going on and is really popular at the moment. And I think he does okay with it on this track. It's a nice touch. It doesn't feel completely out of place. It feels like it's within Chip's vocal range, so I don't feel like he's straining himself trying to rap and sing at the same time. Because that's the most important part, which is why I'm going to turn to that later on, discussing one of Skepta's other verses, because in terms of vocal range, it's abysmal. Like, what? To take a quick drop off to our only feature in this whole thing is when they brought in Dirt Bike to do a little ending verse for Demons, and I think it was okay. The track as a whole in of itself isn't anything to marvel at, but I think Dirt Bike is appropriate. He kind of does his thing that he does on almost every other DBE track, and there's no real surprises here, and that's a shame. I feel like that's how I felt about a lot of these songs on the album, that I'm literally waiting for some sort of surprise, but there isn't one. I feel like it should have been more flexible in terms of who would be doing what, and we're going to touch on areas where that did change and things got a little bit better and a bit more interesting, but for the most part, I don't know. To kind of get on to even, it seems to be going in a downward trajectory with this review, But it's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better, because on Insomnia, Chip and Skepta have the two worst verses on the entire tape, not just this track. I mean, good God. It doesn't even sound like Chip is trying. Skepta didn't say anything even remotely interesting. It's like a lot of Skepta's verses, especially this one. You know when on Facebook you get like those little posters and you had like the really colourful backgrounds on them, and you had this quote that was supposed to be deep and meaningful, but it's kind of just stating the obvious, and it's got all this dramatic stuff behind it to make it sound like look like he's saying something interesting when he actually isn't. That's basically Skepta's verse on this track. Like, he's not actually saying anything interesting. But on this track and a lot of the others, the engineer's doing a mazza with the cuts to make it sound like a lot of these punchlines are saying a lot, but they're not really doing much. And it's a real shame. And even Chip on this track, this is his worst verse on the entire thing, but I guarantee you he will still spin your favourite rapper with this verse. And that just drives me nuts, I swear to God. To move on to where I think this album gets better, and in a lot of places kind of redeems itself, is songs like Tropez. Tropez, it's got a really nice MIA sample on it, and it really kind of takes it out of the mold of the kind of formula where you have adds on hooks. Chip gives the hardest like verses, all the lyrical stuff, and Skepta's just a bridge. Everyone kind of just switches it around, and what they come up with is pretty damn interesting. I like it. On Tropez, I think this has got to be Chip's best verse on the entire tape. And this verse is, if you're a fan of Chip or like Chip even remotely, or remotely interested in any of these artists, the stuff like this, you get fair amounts of these sort of performances on this tape. This is what you came for. I don't really think you came much for Skepta, because you kind of really knew what you were getting with him, unless you just like the name. Ads, you knew what you were getting with him. If you wanted the kind of wave stuff, sure, you'll be here. But apart from that, this is probably what you came for. He's got some great quotables, his flow is just off the chain in that first verse, and he really sets pace, and it's great. Especially, he's got this like really tight punchline where it's like, home pussy good, home pussy safe, got me scoring home and away, and I'm like, that's just, I mean, you can't really complain when he's coming up with punchlines like that. That's pretty genius. Skepta's flow works really well here, and he kind of steps out of the kind of usual mold that he has with the rest of the album, and it works really well. The content is still a bit, you're not really saying that much that's crazily interesting, but the flow works really well with this track, and I feel like Skepta was more in his element. But the one thing that pissed me off about this song, Ads, can you just rap? Stop singing if you don't need to sing. This is one thing that drives me insane about Ads. He's already proven that he can just rap if he wants to, but then he starts singing, and then it's just not necessary. And even with this song, some of it felt slightly out of his vocal range, and it felt like he was straining himself. And then he's focusing on the singing and the melodies he needs to catch, rather than his pen, even though his pen isn't even bad, and it can be really good at points. But he doesn't really focus on that. And it's just like, oh, why? This could have been a pretty perfect tune. But I don't really think he needed to sing here. It was pretty unnecessary. So My Check has this really nice garage theme to it. It's got like the classic female vocal loops that are pretty much used in a staple of great garage songs, and there's plenty of examples, and it really gives you like those good feel-good summer vibes, and it's great. She does so much work on this track with those vocals. Like, she should get credited as an artist, because like it was really good, and at points I feel like it carries the song. I feel like Skepta's verse was a lot better here. I feel like he was more comfortable in terms of flows, where he means he could get out a lot more bars that actually meant something, or I was actually like, that's a quotable, yeah, that bar was hard. And it does a bit more of that. I feel like Ads is very much out of his element, because he starts singing, but then the flow doesn't quite work, and then he's in a deeper register than he's used to in terms of the vocal range, and it doesn't quite work as well for him. But a couple of the bars is a lot better and well thought out, because there's a theme for him to work around. So the Craig David lyric is nice, and he has a couple others in there that he sneaks around. The main problem with Ads' verse on this is that his flow is just off. Like, he's just offbeat. It's not like he's dipping in and out of it, like a lot of MCs to rap on garage are known to do, or just riding it straight up. He's just off. It's just like, well, I don't know. If you wanted to just rap, it probably would have solved that problem, because you're not concentrating on the two things at once, whilst being on a genre that you're unfamiliar on. And that could have solved that problem. I feel like Chip here is at one of those points where lyrically he's just being pretty lazy. But even him being lazy, it's like he's still better than all of you. So it's like, can you really criticize the verse if whilst it's this poor to his standard, to everyone else's standard, and maybe even a lot of people who are watching this as to your standard, it's still a decent verse? It's hard to really argue that. And it's kind of hard for me to make my case here that Chip's being lazy across this album when you're still going to think all of his verses are great anyway. Now, I've got 3 songs on here that I kind of just mark as unnecessary, simply because Chip outshines the other 2 so hard, and he's so much more comfortable with what's going on, that they may as well have just been Chip solos and Chip singles that he could have released at some point. The other 2 just didn't feel necessary on any of these tracks. And those 3 tracks are Sin City, Golden Brown, and High Road. Topically, they're pretty good on Chip's end. Chip seems to have an idea of what the concept of these songs are and touches on certain topics that are appropriate. But the others, it's like, what's going on here? Golden Brown is the song that I said we were going to touch on earlier, and he kind of does the intro in terms of a kind of melody into kind of a singing hook. And I just felt, Jesus Christ, this is dreadful. Like, what? I mean, sure, like, Skepta may like singing, but this isn't a vocal range that you can really flourish on. Half the notes don't really sound that clean that you're trying to hit, and it's just like, I don't know. And even to hit these notes, Skepta feels like he's either straining his voice or letting the auto-tune carry him, and it's just like, I don't know. I really don't know why you needed to do this. I just felt like because the song orientates around Skepta's hook, that the song isn't really necessary. I don't know. I don't get it. It's nice that they tried to kind of switch up the roles that each of the artists were playing, but having Skepta do this hook, it was just a bad move. It was just a really bad move because it doesn't work out well at all. Now, this is another thing where I'm going to go back to kind of the idea that Ads is just obsessed with singing on this thing for no apparent reason. High Road is a song that works better if everyone just raps. There's no need for no singing. The theme works well with everyone just rapping. So why Ads starts coming with his usual melodic rapping, I don't know. Why? I've got no clue. I'm just really confused. So it's kind of a case to kind of move on to kind of an overall summary. This is kind of probably a good way to kind of start the comments. The best way to solve a lot of these issues is don't have all 3 of you on every single song. I don't think that was necessary. Have a couple solos on there. Have a couple songs like a duet and seeing them bounce off each other. Have a song of Ads getting to see if he can lyrically keep up with Chip. That would be nice. Like, have a song where it's like, wow, like, Ads actually kept up with Chip going hard, and he can go hard as well, and everyone's like, wow, that would be a good surprise, but we didn't really get that. So to properly go into, like, my overall and final comments, I don't really think conceptually they thought about what this album was supposed to be. It just feels like these are songs that the 3 of us made together because we really wanted to make some songs together. And the documentary kind of proves that. It's like, yeah, we're having fun, we're crashing out on the floor, we're making tunes like crazy every day. And it's like, yeah, you liked making these songs, but I don't really think you put much thought into half of them and what you were trying to achieve with them, or what you were trying to achieve with the tape as a whole. And it shows in a lot of different points. And a lot of times it's just like, okay, that verse, yep, that verse can go. And it's like express, like you're in like a fast food restaurant and you're like, it's gotta go out, let's go, it's just gotta go. It just gets sent out. And I feel like some of the quality and the kind of thoughts behind a lot of the songs goes with it. And that's one of my biggest grievances with this thing. I feel like Chip carries songs at points, and I feel like Ads is very inconsistent. Ads is like, one minute it's like, yeah, wow, like his pen is really focused on his pen, and he's really trying to mix it up and come with some clever punchlines and some stuff to really engage you. And other stuff, he kind of just reverts back to I like pussy and I like lean, and it's just like, well, this is kind of boring. But to be fair to him, he doesn't revert back to that topic as much. It's just so much that a lot of the songs on here, those themes are just appropriate anyway, so he's just comfortable there. I do feel like sometimes he just sings unnecessary, and I've already pointed out which tracks those were. So as a result of all of these things, I'm going to give this a C-. You're going to notice I do things in grades. Eventually, I will tell you kind of how I do things. That will be in a week or two. But I'm going to give this like a C-/C on this thing. I just felt it could have been a lot better in a lot of places, and if you actually just put a bit more thought about what you wanted to create, you could have solved a lot of problems. And just don't have all three of you on every single track, because that's just not necessary. So that's the first one out of the way. Like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. But most importantly, if you feel like you disagree with any of the takes, comments. That's what the comments are for. I want to build a thing where we can kind of debate all the stuff that I talk about, all the takes that I have, and actually just have an argument about it, because I love arguments, I can't even lie. So I'll try and be in the comments for the next day or two, and then I'll be probably focusing on the next video that's going to come out. Obviously, if you keep an eye on all my socials, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, those will be the main ones. You'll be able to keep an eye on the next videos that are coming. I think the next one that's dropping is Benergy, and that's going to drop 2 days after this one. I'm not sure if I'm probably going to drop that on Thursday. If you like this, if you want me to do more of this, if you completely disagreed with what I said and want to see what other stupid shit I'm going to say in the future, like, subscribe, run the outro. Bye.
I just stepped in the building, coke and vodka, cocaine change your life. Can't shoot a civilian, but as she testify, I'll change my mind. DBE is the wave, SKCM, can we be